Hey there, welcome back. Time to follow up that last video. The last video I called a failure because the circuit didn't work easily. It would have worked if I fought with it, if I really fought to make those connections. But the point is, I don't want to have to fight with it. I want to make the machine do the work as much as possible. Even though I'm still going to hand stitch that last part, I want the machine to make it easy. So what I'm doing now is I'm testing different types of stitches in the embroidery software to see what's going to give me a better connection. And I've done a simple test here so that I can show you the difference in the stitches, and you'll be able to see what I'm talking about and hopefully what's going to work. So here's the software that I'm using, and there are these settings here for stitch height and stitch length, as well as what type of stitch I'm going to use. And so here's our original one that we did. Those I just did a simple running stitch with the default settings, which were a 15 height and a 4 length. And that gave me a really tight stitch. So what I've done is I pulled the file in again, and for every one of the traces I chose a different setting on the stitch. Here's my little notebook. You can see that I labeled each one, and here I gave myself the type of stitch and the settings that I used, so then I can stitch it out, look at it, see what works best, and come back and do them all with that. So here's what I did. I ran it through the machine. Here's the front of it in black, but instead of using the conductive filament, I used red so that you could see it better. Let's switch to a different view so you can see that easier. All right, looking really close. Well, first let's look at the old one. Here's the old one. This is the back of the stitch, and on camera you can't see a difference at all between the conductive filament and the black thread, which is problematic. So that's the old one. Here's the new one. You're looking at, here's the front, and here's the back, and you can see that red stitching, and you can see how some of them, it's more visible than the others. Let's see if we can zoom in any further here. No, that's it. So you can see here, you can hardly see the red there, but here you can see it really well. None of these are quite as tight as the original one for two reasons. One, I didn't choose as tight of a setting on any of them, and two, the conductive filament has more sliding friction in the machine and it creates a little more tension on its own. So looking at these, I'm going to say that this one here on the very outside edge looks like I would be able to get at that red thread. Remember, that red is the conductive. Looks like I'd be able to get at that really easy to make a good connection. Some of these other ones look like they'd be more difficult. So what I want to do is I want to stitch the entire thing in this stitch here, or even looser than that. And remember, this is all going to get covered up with stitching afterwards. Once I've proved that it works, this is all going to end up being invisible except for just a little bit on the ends where I can sew into it. So I don't care what it looks like. So this is the back of it. The red stitching is the conductive. That's what I want. I want a lot of that red exposed. So now I do the whole thing in this stitch, which I can see here is, that's the outside one. Remember, this is flipped, that's the back, so that's number 3. I can see that's a running stitch with a spacing of 80 and 20 in the software that I'm using. It would be different in other software. So let's run this with those settings and conductive filament and see what it does. I've got the file reloaded with all the new settings. I've got the conductive filament loaded on the bottom. Let's stitch it out and see what it does. This should stitch the whole thing in one go. I clean it up and then we can test it. We'll see how it starts here. One thing that does concern me is that I've seen that conductive filament actually has metal running through it, and it's a lot harder to cut, and I'm a little concerned that it's going to wear this machine out super quick. Oh, see, I love this. Look how loose this stitch is looking already. That looks great. But yeah, machine wear is a concern here. I'm not sure what parts would need to be replaced over time doing this. I mean, doing it a few times probably shouldn't hurt anything, but we'll see. So here's the back side of this one that we just stitched. We can see it had some problems. It didn't complete this stitch up here. Something happened. The thread broke or something. And again, what problem that I'm seeing is that the machine can't really snip this conductive filament that well, and it's causing a problem. It'll drag it on where it doesn't need to be dragged. But I like where we're getting. We're getting some good results here. I may have gone a little bit too loose with it. As you can see, like around this curve here, it's not pulling it tight enough. But we should be able to easily test for continuity now, which this is our goal. So we're just checking for ohms, resistance. We're going to check and see here. Let me move it so that you can get. There we go. So if I touch two places right next to each other, just to give you an example, we should get 0. And then ideally you should be able to touch like here and here. Oh, come on now. And get 0. Yes. See how easy that was? Here and here should be 0. Beautiful. Here and here should be 0. So that is a success. Now I just need to maybe tighten that stitch up a little bit more so it's got enough tension to lay it down smooth and cut it. It needs a little more tension to be able to cut that sucker. Maybe switch to a 2-ply. I think I might be using a 3-ply conductive, and 2-ply might be easier to cut. But then this circuit should work. So hopefully by the end of the next video, we should have LEDs flashing on a basic circuit. See you next time.